Welcome back, everybody. We are going to break some hearts or crush some dreams, as they would say, because we are going to be comparing the Gen 5 45 MOS right here from Glock to that new sexy slab O peanut butter, the Shadow Systems XR920. You know, I love both of these things. The 45 is my chosen setup on Glock, but that XR920 just gives us so much right out of the box. And I think these are legitimately one of the best buys, either way you go, based on the size, that kind of hybrid size, that full size grip with that short slide. Now, there is a reason I feel that way, and that's because they're great for all around purposes. Everything from duty use, home defense, self-defense, concealed carry, depending on your body type and size and how you carry. But if you want to buy one and be done, I think this is the size category where it's at. Before we get started, you will notice that the XR920 as it sits here and the Gen 5 45 MOS are very similarly outfitted for this video because I wanted them to be as close as possible for when we get to that range testing, even though the XR920 comes out of the box like this and the G45 needs a little bit of love to come up to what it is as you see it in the video today. And before we get started, a huge shout out to Blackout Coffee, a supporter of the channel. If you want to get caffeinated and get after life, you can check out the Brutal Awakening. That is my favorite brew from them at blackoutcoffee.com. Use code TC10, get yourself 10% off. The link is in the description. All right, so we are gonna talk about the basic specs, the range performance, get into the differences, if I prefer one over the other on these. But if you want the detailed reviews on either of these, those will be linked in the description below. This is gonna be a much more overall view for the comparison video. So getting into these specs, let's start with that Glock 45. I think we all know this is a polymer striker fired at 9mm with a 4.02 inch barrel, weighing in at 24.52 ounces, a total length of 7.44 inches, and a slide length of 6.85. Overall width of this complete is going to be 1.34. And overall, we know Glock, based on their unlimited durability and reliability, which seems to be out there on the range. This Gen 5 model does have the interchangeable back straps where you get different beaver tails with them, and it will have a slightly flared magazine well from the factory, even though this one is upgraded with that SLR mag well on it. It's going to have front serrations, rear serrations, a single size 1913 pick slot up front for you for all of those attachments, and overall is going to do pretty much anything you're going to need a pistol to do. This is the MOS version, that's the modular optic system. Comes with a plate system, so you can put all of the different optics out there, at least all the ones from the major manufacturers, and most even not major manufacturers are gonna have a similar screw size to one of the plates that Glock is going to send out with this in the box. The Glock has a single-sided but reversible and changeable magazine release and an ambidextrous slide stop slide release, because it's both. People still argue about that. It's meant to be a slide stop and a slide release, and the barrel and slide are DLC coated. And now that sexy slab O peanut butter, the XR920. Again, this is a polymer striker fired 9mm. Comes in a couple of different flavors. This one is the black DLC barrel. They do have bronze as well. And obviously this is full flat dark earth Cerakote on that slide. This is going to be a 4.5 inch barrel length. This is going to have a spiral fluted barrel, 20 ounce on that overall weight, and it's going to have some very nice differences compared to a factory frame. A little bit more stipple, some ledges up front on that frame to get a hold of, double undercut on that trigger guard, flat face trigger here, and it's going to have an in-slide mill for your optics on there. Now, it's proprietary and it's going to fit the RMR. It's going to fit much lower into that slide because you're not having to use a plate system. You're going to have front serrations, rear serrations, serrations across the top. You can grab this thing pretty much everywhere and work that slide. And it's going to have a mid-height set of sights to allow you to get a co-witness or lower 1/3 witness with whatever optic you choose to throw on that slide. You are going to have some sexy windows to show off the aesthetics of that spiral fluted barrel. And you will have a single-sided reversible magazine release and a single-sided slide stop slide release on here. This will have an included mag well from the factory on there, and it's going to have interchangeable back straps, much like that Glock 45, and it's going to have a single slot for an accessory out front. However, this is the more standard Glock size for the accessory rail out there, not the 1913 size for the attachment. And you will have an extended beaver tail integrated into that frame, which has slightly less aggressive angles than the Glock. Well, now that you know the main specs between these two, what are the real things that separate these two pistols from one another? The Shadow system is going to have a little bit more of an aggressive sandpaper style texture all the way around. Factory magwell, factory double undercut when it comes to that trigger guard, a little bit more slide work as far as windows, serrations. Those mid-height sights do come on it from the factory, where the Glock you would have to buy aftermarket sights or taller sights to co-witness or lower 1/3 with an optic. And then you're going to get a less aggressive grip angle when it comes to actually holding the pistol. It's going to feel a little bit more natural if you don't like that aggressively arced forward position that Glock does give you. And finally, you're going to get those ledges up front on the Shadow system that do give you that aggressive sandpaper texture as well, which are going to help you control that recoil a little bit. As far as the magazines, they're going to be pretty interchangeable. You can use Glock style magazine releases as well on the Shadow systems, and you can use other aftermarket triggers, just like you can in the Glock on the Shadow systems as well. So what about that range performance? Because this is really where the rubber is gonna meet the road, and the performance is gonna shine through on one of these or the other if you get the chance to test them. And let's go ahead and get started with that Glock 45 MOS. As I said before, the Glock 45 is my chosen size and style when it comes to the Glock platform because it gives me everything I want. Having all that extra grip helps you control that recoil out on the range, and being a little bit shorter than the 17 is not going to make a huge difference as far as the controllability out there, as far as the muzzle rise, muzzle flip, whatever you want to call it, when you are out there using this thing on the range. And hands down, for defensive pistol reasons, I really think this size combo is just where it's at. Magazine exchanges are very easy, very intuitive. The controls are very easy to use, especially if you are at all familiar with pretty much anything in a striker fired market out there. The Glock is going to be one that you can pretty much just get out there and run. You may just have to adjust your grip angle a slight bit if you're coming from something a little different. Pretty much all of the drills out there, I ran like second nature with the Glock because I've carried them off and on for years. And they're hands down just one of the best pistols out there in the market as far as reliability, durability, and the ability to just find stock or aftermarket parts for them. The trigger on the Glock is not the best thing in the world, but it's a duty trigger. It's gonna get you through whatever you need to get through out there, and it's gonna pretty much function flawlessly as long as you're using good ammo. Trigger freeze. Now that Shadow Systems XR920, this thing comes out swinging with the haymakers. That less aggressive grip angle just absolutely works for me. The return to zero on this pistol is super fast. I am not necessarily any more accurate with this pistol, but I am definitely a few tenths faster on the clock because of the less aggressive grip angle. It just goes right back to where that point of aim, point of impact is, and that's where you really want to be when it comes to choosing a pistol. The grip texture out there just makes this thing really controllable in combination with those ledges up on the frame. And running those drills out there, it was just very, very natural with that less aggressive angle, the slide stop slide release, and the magazine release out there. The flat face trigger on the Shadow systems feels a lot better than the Glock, and it is definitely a more performance-minded feeling and operating trigger out there, and it's gonna do everything you need it to do. The double undercut on the trigger guard definitely helps you get a high grip on there and just feels a little bit more solid as compared to that Glock, where it has a little bit more of a blocky design on that guard. The included magwell with the Shadow systems is a very nice touch, and it does help you with performance and magazine exchanges out there, especially when you're flubbing some reloads because you're testing some new big magazine extensions, causing a little bit of a difference in how you would normally hold them, as you can kind of see here. It's always fun when you mess things up for a video and you get to put that out there for the world to see, but it just goes to show you, anytime you're changing your gear around, especially adding that much to a magazine, it's gonna cause a difference in how you grab it. So you're gonna need to do some training with that. Luckily for me, it's what I get to do around here. And since triggers are always a point of contention that people wanna fight about and get angry over, let's take a good up close look at these triggers and talk about the pulls, the weight, and how they feel, because people just love to be on one extreme or the other when it comes to keeping a factory trigger or going to something in the aftermarket. All right, let's take a good solid look at these triggers and do some pull tests so you have a really good idea of what these are gonna look like, feel like, and the weight they're gonna pull at. But make sure you guys show these some love down in the comments and definitely get subscribed to the channel. So let's start with the Glock Trigger right here. One of the things that people dislike about the Glock Trigger is that the trigger shoe safety does not go all the way flush, as you can see right here. And it does kind of dig into your finger and just doesn't feel great, and it's a curved trigger shoe. So some people don't like that engagement on their finger, and some people are totally fine with it. It's completely up to you. So standard Glock stuff in here, you got a decent amount of take up in there, and you can see that break. You just kind of pull right through it, but going slow, you're gonna have some pretty good creep. So there's the wall, pretty good amount of creep, and then it does break. All right, we'll do that one more time for you and show you the reset. A lot of creep and a break. And here's your reset. So reset's tactile, reset is definitely audible, but overall, not a really great feeling setup to your finger. So let's go ahead and do some pulls on here. Get a good idea of what we're working with. And Glock triggers can be kind of tough because you slip up on the trigger shoe. And this one is well broken in and the internals are polished. So going to be about 5 pounds and 6 ounces, right around there, which is about what I would expect for a gun with this many rounds through it that has been polished out. That's pretty typical. We'll do 3 pulls on each, unless we get something weird. Almost dead nuts the same, 5 pounds and 6 ounces. Final one here, unless I screw something up. All right. So that one was actually quite a bit lower, like 4.5. So I might have got a little lower on the trigger that time, but Glocks aren't really the most consistent triggers out there. So we'll go with the average on that one and let's just call it 5. So the XR920, the Slab-O new peanut butter for the channel here, you can see it does have a more flat face, not completely flat face trigger. There is a little bit at the bottom right here, kind of a slight bow all the way through it, but very, very minimal. The trigger shoe safety is again flat, but does not go 100% sub flush. And I asked Shadow Systems specifically about that, and they said because they wanted a true 100% engagement of that trigger shoe safety, but it does feel better than the factory Glocks. Let's do some, actually, let's show it to you first. So there's your trigger, there's your wall. It's gonna break pretty clean. There's your reset, audible, tactile again. There's your wall, decent amount of take up, fairly similar to the factory Glock. Little bit of creep and a break. So far less creep in this trigger than the factory Glock. And there is your reset. So we'll go ahead, do some pulls. All right, so that one right there, talking right at 5 pounds. Again, we'll do 3 unless we get something weird on one of them. Like super weird. A little under 5 right there, probably 4 pounds and about 10 ounces, but I did think got a little lower on that trigger shoe that time. So if you're not perfect on that trigger shoe, you're gonna get a little bit of a different weight. And then that one was right there around that 5 pound, just under, so about 4 pounds and 14 ounces ish. So right about where I expected that. This one's supposed to pull right around 4.5 to 5, so solid. All right, so I've given you the specs. I've shown you how these things perform out on the range. Let's talk about, do I have a preference? And yes, I do. Now that Shadow Systems gives you more out of the box. It gives you pretty much everything right out of the box, but it is more expensive, which is why I outfitted that Glock the way I did. And when you really break this down, if you were to do the exact same things to the Glock 45 that the Shadow Systems comes with, you're probably gonna be a few $100s more than the Shadow Systems cost you. However, outfitted the way these are with the magwell and the sights, and then you throw in a trigger in there, you're gonna be about the same price as that Shadow Systems. But here's what the Shadow Systems gives me. The Shadow System gives me a better aggressive grip texture, ledges on the front of that frame, the magwell, the trigger, right out of the box. And the biggest thing for me is those less aggressive angles on the grip. Now, I don't know about you, but my wrists do not like being at that crushed forward angle like that. Just not how they want to work. Not only in the wrist, but when the tie-in up here on my forearm and into my bicep, it just tenses everything up in my arm. And I find myself having to just really force that angle rather than just being more natural like I am with the shadow systems. Now, out on the range for me, the shadow systems not only feels better, but I'm a little bit faster and just as accurate as I am with that Glock 45. And that proved to be the case on the clock, running different drills, whether it was the bear drill, whether it was the bill drill, or just doing some magazine exchanges and just holster work out there on the range. I found myself being consistently as accurate, but consistently faster with the shadow systems. Now, that may just be me out on the range because that's the angles my wrists want to be at with the shadow system, where you may be completely different and perform far better with the Glock. That's why I always tell people, if you can, get these things in your hand and take them for a test drive. And ultimately, either of these is really going to be a great choice. It's really going to come down to which one fits the angles of your body better, which one fits your budget better, and maybe ultimately which one you want. I'm not going to say go after something for the looks, but looks don't necessarily hurt either, but they don't really help performance. It's really going to be which one performs better for you, or which one you can afford, or maybe you want to get a Glock 45 and have that durability, reliability the Glock is known for, and build it yourself, even though I've had really great experiences with these shadow systems, and both of their warranties, anything happens, they're gonna take care of you. Hands down here, people, nothing but tough choices. Whether you are a Glock fan and want that 45 MOS, or whether you love that shadow systems work and everything that they're doing right out of the box. Either of these, I think, would service everybody out there very well. Well, that is what I've got for you guys today. Make sure you guys get subscribed. We are about to pass 100K here. Huge thank you to everybody that's commented, liked, subscribed, anything here on the channel. All of you guys have been a massive support structure, especially my Patreons. You guys do a ton for me, and I will never forget all of that stuff. If you guys are interested in anything you saw here in the video, I'll leave links at the build list or my webpage, all that good stuff. If you want to support the channel, you can check out any of those links. You can check the Patreon out, or you can go to TriStar Trading. They handle all of the merchandise for the channel. You can pick up the cool new hats or any of the shirts. That's TriStarTrading.com. That link will be down in the description for you. And I'd appreciate it if you'd use those, because all that stuff is a huge help to the channel. I'm also really curious to know your thoughts between the shadow systems, XR920 and the Glock 45. Seems to be, some people love them, some people hate them, and some people don't want anything to do with either of them. And I'm curious to know where you sit at. Make sure you guys catch that 100,000 video once we hit that mark. Going to be some pretty cool prizes that some of the channel sponsors and some companies are going to be throwing out there for some giveaways. You guys get out there, have some fun on the range. Remember, if you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready, whether it's your Glock or your shadow systems. I will see you guys on the next one.